Welcome back to the All Old Rare Coins channel, coin collectors and enthusiasts. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of the 1963 Liberty 1-cent coin, also known as the Lincoln Memorial Penny. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just curious about the history behind this common yet significant coin, stick around as we uncover its details, history, and what makes it valuable in today's market. Before we get into the specifics of the 1963 penny, let's start with a bit of background. The Liberty 1-cent coin, or the Lincoln cent, was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse features Lincoln's profile, which replaced the long-running Indian head penny design. In 1959, the reverse of the coin was redesigned to feature the Lincoln Memorial, replacing the wheat ears that had been used since the coin's inception. This design remained in use until 2008. But today, we're zooming in on one particular year, 1963. Let's break down the design elements of the 1963 Lincoln cent. On the obverse, we have the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. Above his head, the word Liberty is inscribed, symbolizing one of the core principles of the United States. On the reverse, as mentioned earlier, is the Lincoln Memorial. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. Pretty impressive for such a small detail, right? Beneath the memorial, you'll find the denomination 1 cent, and above it, the familiar phrases E pluribus unum and United States of America. The 1963 penny is made primarily of copper, with about 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, giving it that iconic reddish-brown color. During this era, the pennies were still made with a relatively high copper content, unlike modern pennies, which are mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. As for mint marks, 1963 pennies were minted in two locations, Philadelphia and Denver. Pennies minted in Philadelphia carry no mint mark, while those from Denver have a small D mint mark under the date. Depending on where your penny was minted, it could have slight variations in value, which leads us to our next section. So, is your 1963 penny worth anything more than its face value? For the most part, circulated 1963 pennies are still quite common and typically worth just a cent or two due to the large mintage. Over 754 million were struck at the Philadelphia Mint and 1.7 billion at the Denver Mint. However, there are certain factors that can increase the value of your penny. These include mint state condition, errors, and varieties. Uncirculated or mint state coins can fetch a few dollars, especially those graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services, and then there are error coins, like pennies with double dies, off-center strikes, or even repunched mint marks. These rarities can make your penny worth significantly more. If you come across one of these error coins, it's always a good idea to have it professionally appraised, as some can sell for $350,000. Now, how can you tell if you have a valuable 1963 penny? First, check the overall condition. If the coin looks uncirculated, meaning there's nowhere on Lincoln's face or the memorial, it might be worth getting graded. Next, examine the date and mint mark closely. Look for any doubling, especially on the numbers or letters. You might also want to check for any off-center strikes or other visible anomalies that could indicate an error. That wraps up our deep dive into the 1963 Liberty 1-cent coin. Whether you're collecting for fun or profit, it's always worth taking a closer look at the change in your pocket. You never know, you might just have a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. Next we'll dive into the history, design, mint marks, and what makes the 1968 penny special. Plus, we'll talk about how much these coins could be worth today, especially if you have one in mint condition or with rare errors. The 1968 Liberty 1-cent coin is part of the Lincoln Memorial Penny series, which started in 1959 and replaced the older wheat penny design. This coin was minted to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, with the Lincoln Memorial appearing on the reverse. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909, has since become one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history. In 1968, something interesting happened with the mintage. After a 12-year break, mint marks returned to the front of the penny. We'll explain more about that in a minute. Let's take a closer look at the design. On the obverse, we have Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, which has been in use since 1909. Above Lincoln's head, you'll see the word Liberty, and next to it, the date 1968. As always, Lincoln is facing right, a symbolic image that reminds us of his leadership during the Civil War. Now, flip the coin over and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro. If you look closely, you can actually spot a tiny Lincoln statue inside the memorial. Above the memorial, you'll see the words United States of America and the Latin phrase E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Below, the denomination 1 cent is clearly visible. Now let's talk about what the 1968 penny is made of. Like most pennies from this era, it's composed primarily of copper, 95% copper to be exact, with 5% zinc and tin. This gives the coin that distinctive reddish-brown color, but what makes the 1968 penny particularly interesting is its mint marks. In 1968, the U.S. Mint reintroduced mint marks after they were removed from pennies starting in 1965 due to the Coinage Act of 1965. Pennies from 1968 can have one of two mint marks, D for Denver or S for San Francisco. You'll find these mint marks right below the date. If there's no mint mark, that means the coin was minted in Philadelphia. This was the first year that pennies were minted in San Francisco for general circulation in nearly a decade. So, how much is your 1968 penny worth today? In general, circulated 1968 pennies are worth about their face value, 1 cent. Since over 4.1 billion were minted in Philadelphia, 2.8 billion in Denver, and 258 million in San Francisco, these coins aren't particularly rare in circulated condition. However, uncirculated or mint state coins, especially those graded MS-65 or higher, can be worth a few dollars, depending on their condition. If you come across a 1968 penny with little to no wear, it's worth holding onto or getting graded. Now, here's where things get more exciting: error coins. Error pennies, such as double die obverse, repunched mint marks, or off-center strikes, can significantly increase the value of your 1968 penny. Some of these errors can make your coin worth anywhere from $25,000 to several $100s, depending on the rarity and severity of the mistake. One known error to watch out for in 1968 pennies is the floating roof variety. On some 1968 pennies, the roof of the Lincoln Memorial appears disconnected from the columns, which can make the coin more valuable. So, how do you know if your 1968 penny is worth more than just 1 cent? First, check the coin's condition. If it's uncirculated, with little to no signs of wear, it may be worth getting graded. Then, examine the date and mint mark closely. Look for any doubling in the letters or numbers, which would indicate a double die error. You'll also want to check for off-center strikes or any signs of unusual features, like the floating roof error on the reverse. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the 1968 Liberty 1 cent coin. Whether you're just starting your collection or you're a seasoned collector, keep an eye out for those mint marks, errors, and uncirculated coins. You never know, you might have a valuable penny right in your pocket. Now, we're diving into a coin that many of us have come across: the 1985 Liberty 1 cent, also known as the Lincoln Memorial penny. Whether you're looking to learn about its history, its design, or even its potential value, you're in the right place. Let's take a closer look at this iconic coin. Believe it or not, this penny could be worth more than just 1 cent, depending on a few key factors. So, stay tuned to find out what you should be looking for when examining your 1985 penny. Let's start with a bit of history. The Liberty 1 cent, or Lincoln Memorial penny, has been a staple of U.S. coinage since 1959. That year marked the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and the reverse of the coin was updated from the original wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial. This design, created by Frank Gasparro, remained on the penny until 2008. The obverse, featuring Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln, has been in use since 1909 and continues to appear on pennies to this day. Now, let's zoom in on the details of the 1985 version. On the obverse of the 1985 penny, we see Abraham Lincoln's right-facing portrait, along with the inscription Liberty to his left and the date 1985 to his right. Above Lincoln's head is the familiar phrase, "In God We Trust," a hallmark of American coinage. Flipping the coin over, the reverse features the Lincoln Memorial, and if you look closely, you can see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a nice nod to the real-life monument in Washington. D.C. At the top, you'll see United States of America, and the Latin phrase E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. At the bottom, the denomination 1 cent is prominently displayed. This simple, yet iconic, design is one we all recognize. The 1985 penny is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating, unlike earlier pennies, which were made mostly of copper. Starting in 1982, the U.S. Mint switched to this zinc core composition due to the rising cost of copper. This change means that most 1985 pennies have a zinc core, which makes them lighter than older copper pennies. As for mint marks, 1985 pennies were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If your penny was minted in Philadelphia, it won't have a mint mark, but if it was minted in Denver, you'll see a small D under the date. San Francisco pennies will have an S mint mark, but these were only produced as proofs for collectors, not for general circulation. So, if you've got a 1985 penny with an S mint mark, you're likely holding a proof coin, which has a higher quality strike and a mirror-like finish. Now, let's talk value. Circulated 1985 pennies are extremely common, with over 5.6 billion minted in Philadelphia and 4.4 billion in Denver. Because of this, the vast majority of 1985 pennies are worth their face value. 1 cent, however, uncirculated or mint state pennies, especially those graded MS-65 or higher, can be worth more. In top condition, these coins can fetch anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 depending on their grade, and I appeal, proof coins from San Francisco, marked with an S, are even more valuable. In perfect condition, these proof pennies can sell for around $10,000 to $15,000 or more, depending on their quality. But here's where things get interesting: error coins. As with any year, errors can significantly increase the value of your 1985 penny. Look for things like double dies, off-center strikes, or even repunched mint marks. These rarities can make a seemingly ordinary penny worth hundreds of dollars. One of the more common errors to look out for is the broad strike error, where the coin is struck without a defined rim. These can be worth anywhere from $50,000 to dollars, depending on the severity of the error. So, how do you know if your 1985 penny is worth more than face value? First, check its condition. If it looks uncirculated, meaning it has no signs of wear, with sharp details and a shiny surface, it may be worth getting it graded. Next, take a close look at the date and mint mark. Look for any doubling in the numbers or letters, or any signs of misstrikes, which could indicate an error coin. Don't forget to inspect the reverse side too, sometimes errors show up there as well. And that wraps up our deep dive into the 1985 Liberty 1 cent coin. While most of these pennies won't make you rich, there are some rare finds out there. So, the next time you come across a 1985 penny, take a closer look. You might just have a hidden gem in your pocket. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more coin collecting tips. And let us know in the comments, have you ever found a rare 1985 penny? Until next time, happy collecting.